Hi, my name's Lyndsay and I work for the Scottish Wildlife Trust down at the Falls of Clyde in New Lanark, and today I'm here to show you a little bit more about trees. Trees are fascinating. They're found everywhere in the world apart from Antarctica, and they're one of the oldest and the largest living organisms in the world. Most people know trees are important, but many don't know why or haven't given it much thought. When we look at trees, we really build up an idea of how important they are to us. Trees act as windbreaks, flood defence, water filters, noise reducers. They of course provide wood, paper, furniture, shelter for us all. We've even used woods over the years for dyes and medicines. We've got aspirin from willow, for instance. And of course, we can't forget trees as a habitat. From fungi to holes for woodpeckers, insects, blossoms for bees, nests for birds. Even the root system can offer shelter. Lichens too. But much more than its uses, trees give us clean, fresh air. It all starts at the roots, where they absorb the water and minerals. The root system can be about 4 times the size of the crown. A tree like this might soak up about 2 bathtubs worth of water in a day. The leaves make food for the tree through a process known as photosynthesis. The green chlorophyll in the leaves absorbs the sunlight, and that, along with carbon dioxide, makes sugar for energy and throws out oxygen into the atmosphere. It's all very clever. The food is passed down the trunk. Here you can see a close-up of a trunk. It shows you the protective outer layer, the sapwood or the xylem that takes the water all the way up to the leaves, a layer of growth to allow the tree to get thicker, and the phloem that takes the energy down back into the roots. And of course you've got that strong heartwood to give it structure in the middle. I'm often asked, if leaves are so important, why do they fall off in winter? Well, there's different types of leaves. Look at these broadleaves here. We've got the cherry, the oak, and the lime here. They all have a large surface area, which is ideal to get as much carbon dioxide in and to take in as much light. They're also full of water, and that's a problem in winter. So the tree really needs to get rid of these leaves to protect itself. Takes in all the water, takes in any nutrients, and it absorbs that green chlorophyll as well. That's why we end up getting the kind of yellow tones and the red tones coming through after the green's gone. Conifers and evergreens are different. So this Scots pine here has a completely different leaf. The first thing you notice is a very small surface area, and that's to stop any water being lost. They also can have a very waxy coating, which stops water loss as well. This makes them perfectly adapted for the northern environment and the colder winter conditions. Look at this yew as well. The interesting thing about this, it takes it to a whole new level. There's antifreeze in its needles, and it can withstand temperatures of minus 35 degrees Celsius. Trees are truly adaptable. And what's more, there are lungs of life. One tree can absorb as much as 48 pounds of carbon dioxide every year. But it's not just the clean air. Think about the last time you were in the woodland and how that made you feel. For me, it's all about putting things into perspective. Being surrounded in these giants makes me feel good. It's a time for me to relax, exercise, play, to be totally connected to nature, take in the smells, the sights and the sounds. It's really my escape from the busy world. And it's a great way to learn new things too. So you're never really too far away from a tree, whether it's a woodland or a single tree in your garden. So the Clyde and Avon valleys are my local patch. I can't wait to show you them. Come on. It's a mixed woodland, but much of it is ancient woodland. The remnants are still there due to the steep edges next to the gorge. I've noticed in nature you need to be a little bit of a detective, paying close attention to the small things around you and looking at the detail. It's all about piecing together the evidence. There's loads of good field guides to help you identify trees, but first you need to familiarise yourself with the habitat and the location. Think about the types of trees you normally find in that area, then you can piece together a list of likely subjects, if you like. Then we can really start looking at the other evidence. Think about the heights of the tree, the shape of the crown, texture of the bark, shapes of the leaves, or maybe just other things you find lying around that can help you identify, like seeds, flowers, pine cones, berries. All this can be pieced together to help you identify your tree. One thing to bear in mind is season. There's absolutely no point looking for acorns and chestnuts in the summertime. You're only going to find them in autumn and winter. And the best bit about trees is they don't move, so you can get really close to them. Look at the size of this massive beech. All the telltale signs of a beech. Look at this bark here. Found this under the tree. So this is quite good because it shows you what it's like in winter. We've got the buds here. You can see the leaves that are coming off. And also these characteristic beech masts. Now underneath a beech tree you can see loads of these coming off. Characteristic spiky 4 bits here. And the beech mast seeds will be all about here too. Kind of little triangular seeds, you can find them. Here is a beech leaf. Interestingly, there's been studies on beech to show communication. When they're under an attack, all the surrounding leaves lower their photosynthesis rate. Even if a deer was to have a munch at a twig, the beech responds by increasing its tannin levels, which make the tree taste horrible to the deer. Underneath the beech you can see where all the beech nuts and leaves have landed. It's not great for wildlife. Definite fight and competition for light. So we're lucky enough to have this native species, the Scots pine, in our woodland here. You can see it's got that reddish bark and the platelets here. And if I look in the ground, I can definitely see some evidence that it's definitely a Scots pine to help me. We've got some Scots pine cones here. These are closed, but I've also got some that are open as well, and I'll show you those. Another telltale sign is some of the pine needles have fell off here. The cool thing about these, you can tell it's a pine because when you look at how they're attached on, the pine needles attached in pairs. So I always remember P for paired and pine. So pine trees tend to have paired needles, spruce tend to have single, and the firs tend to have a kind of fruity smell when you rub their needles together. Look how different the bark is of this Sitka spruce and all the little round platelets. The pine cone's really different too. It's got a real papery, softer feel than the rest. Look at this Norway spruce, how long and cigar shaped it is instead. And here's the Douglas fir pine cone with the little mouse tails there. I think a squirrel's had a little snack under here. These cones are really different. These are from the larch. They're much smaller. And if you look at the leaves here, the new shoots are really bright green. And they all come out in whorls. Here you can see a close-up of the pine cone, how small it is. And it sits in a little peg on its twig there. The larch is one of the only conifers to shed their leaves in winter too. Stumbled across little patch of some ash. Closer inspection, you can see how pale it is. There's wee markings on it too. The leaves are compound and the leaflets are in pairs. Here you can see 9 leaflets in one leaf. There's little serrations at the edge too. I love how nature takes hold. Even when it's fallen over, it's growing. This ash tree is doing a superb job of sprouting up really. Although it's not a native tree, the horse chestnut is really recognisable in the forest. Look at those big palmate leaves. It's like a big handprint. It's the wrong time of year for chestnuts, but look, I found these shells underneath the tree from previous year. Found a lovely little hawthorn bush here. See the bird? The flowers of the hawthorn are so delicate and pretty, perfect for bees though. Another tree that has flowers is the elder here. The flowers aren't quite out yet, but when they are, I'll make a nice cordial from them. Here you can see the twigs and the bark. There's a soft pith that goes through the twigs, which makes them perfect for making little beads and pea shooters and things like that. My walk's taken me into a completely different habitat now. This is a riparian woodland. The trees round about here love wetter soil. It's always near water as well. Here's an alder, and when you're passing, have a look. You can see a leafy lichen here. Always a great indicator of air quality. Alder are completely adapted to growing next to the river. Their roots form great wee hidey holes for fish and caddisfly to hide amongst. In fact, its wood actually gets stronger underwater, and it doesn't rot either, which is perfect for using for things like sluice gates. Apparently, you can make a green dye from the alder pine cones. Another species that lends itself well to this riparian woodland is the bird cherry. Wow, look what we've found amongst the leaves of the bird cherry. It's a caterpillar. This is specific to the bird cherry. It's a bird cherry ermine moth caterpillar, and it will grow in to be an ermine moth, which kind of looks a bit like a Dalmatian. It's white with black dots. It builds these little silk tents to protect itself from predators. Most of the tree's growth's already been done by now, so hopefully the munching that this caterpillar's doing won't have too much lasting damage for the tree. Certainly won't kill the tree anyway. They've adapted well over time to cope with caterpillars. It's amazing how many different types of habitat there are along the Clyde Valley here. This is a stand of Douglas fir. You can see the wide fissures with a kind of orange tinge to the bark. And if you look at the needles, underneath they've got these 2 bands. If you look at the ground beneath it, there's not much happening. It's not very good for wildlife. Scottish Wildlife Trust have done a little bit of management around here. So, because the monoculture is not great for diversity, we've clear-felled it and replanted with native species. So this is going to support a much wider variety of insects and plants. I can't wait to revisit this area in the coming years, to see how the trees have grown, and to see what wildlife's moved in. I'm on my way back now. Another side of the Clyde Valley, I found this mighty oak. I suppose this is a fairly young one, really. It's maybe a couple of 100 years old. Look at the burrs in this young oak. So this is the tree's response to an insect or a fungus attack. These are highly sought after by woodturners who can make cool things out of them, like bowls. The further I go on, the older the trees seem to get. These are the Cadzo oaks. They were planted 7 centuries ago when Robert the Bruce was still alive. People have had a massive impact over the years on these trees, clearing for farmlands, pollarding by the white cattle that used to live here, and cutting them for timber. You can certainly see how heavy and gnarly and cracked the wood is. The branches hang heavy with dead wood, and some of it's fallen to the ground. But great thing is, it's wonderful for wildlife. Look at all those nooks and crannies for the wildlife to live in. In fact, the oak tree can have 500 different types of insects associated with it. That's why they're so important for nature. I hope you've enjoyed learning about my local patch and you've been inspired to go out and explore your patch too. I'm no expert, and every day that I go out I learn something new, and I hope you will too.